morning, children. The modern age in Europe covers three chapters, namely the Renaissance, the Reformation, Industrial Revolution, and Capitalism and Socialism. As per the revised reduced syllabus, only small topics have been mentioned from the chapters. In this video lecture, we will study all the topics of the above mentioned chapters one by one. The Renaissance. The word Renaissance means to be reborn. It is used to describe an enormously important movement of cultural rebirth that began in Italy in the early 1300s, gradually spread northward to the other European countries, and finally ended around 1650. The Renaissance was a unique period of history, an era when people actively sought to improve their own cultures by attempting to recapture some of the greatness of the long forgotten civilizations of ancient Greece and Rome. The Renaissance was a time when new styles of art were developed, when first Protestant religions were born, when big advances in science expanded basic understanding of our solar system and of human life itself. The Renaissance was also the first when books were first great became widely available, and was when the first great voyages of world explorations began. What is meant by Renaissance? The term Renaissance is derived from the Latin word renascere. It signifies the rebirth of the freedom loving thoughts which during the Middle Ages have been fettered and imprisoned by religious authority. A new spirit was in circulation, the spirit to know more of the world and its wonder. It was characterized by the rebirth of the learning of Greco Roman classics, revival of art, and growth of humanism. Renaissance in Europe became an intellectual movement, and it brought new developments in the fields of literature, religion, philosophy, politics, arts, and science. Causes for the advent and growth of Renaissance. New trade routes between Europe and the East. The Turkish invasion that drove the Greek scholars westward made the trade in the East Mediterranean too risky. Therefore, new trade routes to India and the East had to be found. It was in the search of these new trade routes that Vasco da Gama went around the Cape of Good Hope and reached Kerala's coastal town of Calicut in 1498. Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese nobleman, went around the globe between 1520 and 1522. The new routes between Europe and the East brought great prosperity to Italian cities. Since Italy became the center of all trade routes, it led to the spread of Renaissance to the rest of Europe quickly. Invention of the printing press. The invention of printing press in the middle of 15th century in Europe made it possible to produce books in large numbers. Holy Bible and many other religious and classical books were printed and made available all over Europe. Printing and distribution of books greatly influenced people's attitude to life and brought about a new awakening in Europe. Impact of Renaissance. Impact on literature. The Renaissance in Europe ushered in a new era in literature. An outstanding impact of the intellectual revival was the use of native languages for literary writings. For centuries, scholars had been using Latin, which only a few educated people could understand. Modern European languages replaced Latin as the language of poetry, drama, and fiction. Thus, the Renaissance led to the development of vernacular languages in Europe. William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare, the famous English poet and dramatist of the 16th century, through his outstanding contribution, had elevated English literature to world status. He was the greatest poet and playwright England had ever produced. He wrote 38 plays, more than 150 sonnets, and many poems. His historical dramas include Richard II, Henry V, Henry VI, and he also wrote tragedies such as Hamlet and Macbeth. Impact on art. The medieval artist was a slave to tradition and painted and carved with the objects of teaching religion. The Renaissance was a revolt against the bondage of medieval traditions. Now, beauty became the predominant motive. Even the scenes of the church reflected a sense of optimism and grace. Paintings. Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was a great painter, sculptor, great musician, and scientist. New techniques were adopted in his paintings to give a fine feeling of reality. His famous paintings, The Last Supper and Mona Lisa, are the great masterpiece of European art. His paintings, Mona Lisa, is a perfect depiction of beauty and harmony. In fact, it is more beautiful than any creation of nature. There is a mild smile on the face, and with eyes half closed and half revealing, as if she had something to say, the total effect is such as any heart could desire. Science. The first important breakthrough in the knowledge of modern sciences was in astronomy. For centuries, it was believed that the earth is the center of the universe and the sun and the stars went around the earth. This theory was refuted by Copernicus, a Polish scientist. He studied the celestial bodies and proved the theory of the rotation of the earth on its axis and its motion around the sun. The Reformation. The Reformation movement was led by Martin Luther, who protested against the evil practices that had crept into the Roman Catholic Church. The Renaissance in Europe stimulated people to think for themselves. They were not prepared to believe that something was true without thinking about it or looking for proof. The spirit of inquiry led to the movement for the reforms of abuses in the Roman Church, ending in the establishment of the Protestant churches. The Roman Catholic Church was split into two divisions, the Roman Catholics and the Protestants. Causes of the Reformation. The Reformation was mainly a revolt against the falling practices of the Catholic Church. 1. The lifestyle of the popes and the clergy. The popes and the clergies led the lives of luxury and impurity. Great scholars like Erasmus and Thomas More, in their works Praise of Folly and Utopia, respectively brought to light the abuses that were rampant in the church. Second, the priests were exploitative. The priests charged high fees for conducting religious ceremonies. The offices of the church were sold by the Pope. The priest could pronounce a marriage lawful or unlawful. They extracted money for each such transaction. Third, sale of indulgences. Sale of indulgences was another way of collecting money which remitted punishment for sin. Those who had money would be made free from doing penance for their sins by buying a letter of indulgence. The clergy claimed that those who had bought the indulgences got remission of their sins by God. Taxes for the support of the church. The people were required to pay tithe, that is, 1/10 of their income, to support churches and priests. The clergy also collected another tax called Peter's Penance from the people. The burden mainly fell on the peasants and the middle class families. Fifth, raising funds to build St. Peter's Basilica. Pope Leo X wanted to build St. Peter's Basilica with new architectural designs. He sent emissaries to sell indulgences and to collect funds for the new project. John Tenzel, an agent of the Pope, went to Wittenberg with the mission of raising sums for the buildings. It provoked Martin Luther. Sixth, Rulers' resentment at Pope's interference in administrative affairs. As early as 13th century, the rulers of Europe had quarreled with the Pope over the church property which could not be taxed. The rivalry ended in the defeat of papacy. The French king Philip IV had forced Pope Clement V to leave his headquarters at Rome in 1309 and stay in Avignon in France when he interfered in his political affairs. Counter Reformation. Counter Reformation means the reforms of the Church of Rome in the 16th and 17th centuries. It was stimulated by the Protestant Reformation. As a result, Christianity became more liberal and more tolerant of different kinds of opinions. Industrial Revolution and Capitalism and Socialism. Children, in this chapter we have only three definitions. Definition of Industrial Revolution, Capitalism and Socialism. So please learn them properly. Industrial Revolution. The word revolution means something sudden and quite swift. Therefore, the Industrial Revolution ushered in the machine age or mechanical age. The Industrial Revolution began in England close to 1750 AD. What is the meaning of capitalism? The capitalism is a system in which business and industries were owned by private individuals and not by the state. The workers under this system do not own anything. They work for a wage. The spirit of capitalism is market economy, profit maximization, and there is no provision for the welfare of people. Socialism. Socialism means the land and the other instruments of production shall be the common property of the people and shall be used and governed by the people for the people. The other means of production included the mines, factories, means of transport and communication, bank and consumer stores. The socialists believe that such a system alone can create conditions in which everyone could have an opportunity to benefit from the country's wealth. Therefore, the socialism emphasizes on planned economy, social cohesion, and effective provisions for welfare of the people. So children, in this video lecture, we studied about Renaissance, its meaning, causes for the advent and growth of Renaissance, impact of Renaissance on literature, painting and science. The Reformation. We studied about the meaning of Reformation, dissatisfaction with the practices of Catholic Church, and meaning of Counter-Reformation. We also read about the definitions of Industrial Revolution, Capitalism, and Socialism. Thank you and stay blessed.